mind of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and that's according to many, many people.
That's according to many, many people. Not just a few people, but many and many, many people. The first 100 days, we're now at day 101. You know what that means? That means we have 1,360 days left. What are the Democrats going to do? I wonder if Amazon will sell them Hamas-style suicide vests by the millions. Well, happy hump day to you. Happy Wednesday to you, and welcome back. It is, of course, hump day in the Clinton household. Whichever multi-million-dollar mansion they're in, New York or Washington, D.C., Embassy Row. Where else do they have places, Michael? Moscow? Where are their places? Hillary Clinton, naturally, waking up face down in a pool of her own dried vomit on the linoleum kitchen floor with an empty 1-gallon cardboard box of cheap New Zealand Chardonnay next to her. She knows it's Wednesday, and that's hump day in the Clinton household, and she's got to get out. Get out. Because Bill, it's the deal. He gets the house to himself, you know, because, I mean, he's the one who got that $500,000 speaking engagement in Moscow. It is good to be a Democrat. And nobody accused him of Russian collusion. That was kind of interesting, wasn't it? So we got that. That also means that it's mailbag day here on the Chris Plant Show. And I have right here in my hand, I'm shaking the paper made from Canadian wood pulp. I wish they'd just calm down, don't you? They got libs back again. But I have my mailbag questions in hand, provided me by Michael Piercy this morning. And President Trump, what we opened with there was President Trump last night in Michigan, the great state of Michigan, the beautiful state of Michigan, where he had a big rally, and it was a lot of fun. Everybody had a good time, except for one crazy liberal. Was that crazy liberal was that a man or a woman? President Trump was having, is that a man or is that, he was looking, because a crazy disruptor, did he or she self-immolate or anything like that afterward? I heard somebody talking about self-immolation last night on the television, said that the Democrat Party is self-immolating, and I thought, well, let's have a big Jonestown down on the mall for the Democrat Party. But we'll get into all that. President Donald Trump jokes about protester who disrupted 100 Days speech. Quote, thought it was a guy. That's in the headline right there. That's good stuff. Also, Scott Jennings, the CNN guy, the one conservative on CNN who always puts them in their childlike place. And Scott Jennings showed up at the President Trump rally in Michigan last night and talked about how he owns the libs on CNN. Everybody laughed and clapped. Nobody firebombed Tesla or a Jewish governor's house or shot anybody, because that's for the Democrats. You know, that's stuff. And President Trump calls out Amazon's Jeff Bezos, you know, the Democrat centibillionaire. They love their billionaires. They just hate anybody else's billionaires, and they might have to firebomb things because they do a lot of that these days. And President Trump, because he never stops, did a big interview, a full-blown, a lengthy interview with the apparatchiks at ABC Fake News, and they're going after him and trying to get a gotcha question in. Do you have 100% confidence in Pete Hegseth? I don't know. Where's Lloyd Austin? Is he out of the hospital yet? Because Joe Biden's Secretary of Defense disappeared for weeks on end, and his immediate deputies didn't know where he was, and there was war breaking out in Europe. And ABC News never asked a single sniveling question about that because, you know, charlatanism is their big game. Amazing stuff. And President Trump answered, of course. Good stuff. But, yeah, where is Lloyd Austin? And how about his Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, he was doing such a great job as war was breaking out in Europe and war breaking out in the Middle East. And where was he? Did we ever see him anywhere? Did they argue over the size or the shape of a table to negotiate peace? The answer is no. The answer is no. Almost as bad, but probably not quite as bad as Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State, our chief diplomat. And Barack Obama, during Barack Obama's presidency, he used the U.S. military to attack more countries than any president since the end of World War II. Speaking of the end of World War II, today is the 80th anniversary of the death, the suicide, shot through the head, self-inflicted, of the leader of the Socialist Workers' Party in Germany. That happened 80 years ago today. Sergeant Pepper called the band to play, and that was 1945. Adolf Hitler in the Führerbunker in Berlin. My best girl and I, we've been to the location where the Führerbunker was. Ava Braun was still standing outside. She looks pretty good, all things considered. Oh wait, yeah, she overdosed on drugs there, and then Dolph shot himself in the head and killed himself. That was 80 years ago today, and kind of a big deal. We're still trying to find out how they're going to commemorate that at Harvard University. Are they going to have a rally in the quad? Do they have a quad there? I don't know. And maybe they're going to have a candlelight vigil because, you know, how they love flames ever since they're riding around on horseback with bullwhips and torches, the Democrat Party of the KKK. But maybe a candlelight vigil for Adolf Hitler at Harvard, because that would be perfectly in keeping with the more or less newfound traditions. Got to scratch the surface a little deeper to find their history from the 1930s and the 1940s when it comes to the Nazis. But never mind all that. Let's see how old man Joe Kennedy was getting along with the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler. But that was 80 years ago today, and that was a good thing. Adolf Hitler shooting himself, and it would have been nicer if you could capture him and maybe give him to the Soviets, because they would. Oh, yeah, speaking of which, you see the lady that was released, I'll get to this, tortured by the Russians, a reporter, Ukraine, and she, wait till you hear this, because pretty gruesome. My best girl was reading it to me over breakfast this morning. Pass the granola. Pretty amazing story, because this is what commies do, not that our news media focuses on that or anything. Today is also the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon in Vietnam to the, as Ted Kennedy used to say, in Vietnam to the communists backed by the Soviet Union, the predecessors of Vlad the Impaler Putin, and the Democrats applauded because they're on the side of the communists, even in the 1970s. They were not on the side of the good guys. They really haven't been on the side. Were they ever on the side of the good guys? So should we go back to Andrew Jackson and the Trail of Tears, and then let's see Jefferson Davis and the Confederate States of America, the Nathan Bedford Forrest, then Jim Crow, then shall I go on? You know, we've got all of them, George Wallace, and we've got, there was a George Wallace presidential campaign volunteer that shot and killed Martin Luther King. The Democrats never get the credit they're due because of information dominance and the corruption of the left, of course. But today is the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon to the commies. And, a lot of great people that served in the Vietnam War, Americans, and a lot of great Vietnamese that fought against the communists, and families that fled. My stepfather, Bill Plant, was a TV news reporter for CBS News at the time. I was a small child, and he, he was there for the evacuation of Vietnam when I was a child, watching it on TV and all that good stuff. And I certainly know people and have friends who were evacuated as children. I have one friend who's a woman in Washington who was a paratrooper in the South Vietnamese Army fighting the commies, and an amazing woman, Germaine, wonderful. And other names I don't want to drop for various reasons, but interesting day, this day, 50 years ago, that Saigon fell to the communists, and the Hanoi Janes of the world, they're on the side, and the mainstream of the Democrat Party at the time, don't kill yourself on the side, don't kid yourself, on the side of the communists. and all that. And I've visited Vietnam. I've been to Saigon. I don't call it Ho Chi Minh City, but the New York Times does today because they love Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh. They had chants for him in the 1960s. And I've been to Hanoi and not into, but by the Hanoi Hilton and all that, and out into the countryside in North Vietnam. I went to the crash site, excavation site of an F-4 American airplane that went down, and the pilot was MIA forever and ever. And I got that. But Vietnam is a great country. The Vietnamese people are great. It's communists that are bad. And that's a big problem because they're still on the loose. You got Vlad the Impaler, Putin. They love murdering people by the millions. You know, the Chinese Wuhan that came out of the Wuhan lab, they say that killed more than 7 million people worldwide. And that's why the commies in the United States, they call themselves Democrats, don't want to investigate the origins of the Wuhan Red Death. The Wuhan Red Death killed, they say, 7 million people, the World Health Organization, including more than 1 million people in the United States. And our news media, representing the Democrat Party, shrugged and said, yeah, whatever, we don't care. You know, we killed 1 million babies last year in the womb. We harvested their organs and played with them in the parking lot. The Democrat Party, they're the commies of today. In the United States, the left is here. They're not liberals. This is the authoritarian / totalitarian. I don't want to sell them short. Left, the worldwide left, the Davos left, the big part of it driving the train here. But the Democrat Party, they're not on the side of the Bill of Rights or freedom or liberty or American traditions or customs. They're in favor of open borders and of Luigi Mangione. They love Luigi Mangione. They love MS-13. They love Tren de Aragua. The Democrat Party, they are on the list of bad guys in the world, no doubt about it. But there is a lot to talk about today. It's not like I wrote any of this down. I just went in and I started. But illegal alien arrests, the Democrats are on the side of all illegal aliens. And we've got a headline today on our stories sheet for the day. Violent Democrats. Michael, you sold this category short. There are only 2 items there. However, our friend Jack Posobiec, he was violently attacked at what appears to be at the instigation of Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin. Jack Posobiec, an independent journalist, great presence online. He's on the side of truth, justice, and the American way. And Jack Posobiec, I don't know if you've seen the video, violently attacked by a mob of goons and thugs on the ground being stomped. You can see the bottom of the shoes coming down on him as the violent mob is stomping. And there's Jamie Raskin, the Democrat congressman, also the Lost Marks brother. He seemed to be inciting and inviting and directing the violent mob of union thugs, and they violently attacked Jack. And we live in America with Democrats very much in charge locally and beyond. And so there will be no consequences. And they've identified, Jack Posobiec has identified at least a couple of the meat-headed thugs that violently attacked him like gangsters from the 1930s on the waterfront. It was just amazing stuff. Also, in just this morning in Times Square, a gunman on the run after one shot just off of Times Square. And the police are looking for a Democrat because the one thing they can say for sure is that it's a Democrat. Also, another header, the left loves MS-13 and Hamas. And they do. They really, really do. Remarkable party, the Democrat Party. And their judges, this is a great one, actually, the Judge Dugan, who helped the criminal woman-beating gang member sneak out of the back of the courthouse so he didn't face the consequences of his criminal actions and his being here in the country illegally. The Democrat Party is really here to fundamentally transform the United States, America, as Barack Obama said, by destroying it, you know. But the Supreme Court in the state of Wisconsin suspended Judge Dugan indefinitely because it appears that she's part of an international crime network, and that should be frowned upon, I think. Also, scathing, speaking of Hitler dying on the candlelight vigil at Harvard tonight for Hitler, scathing Harvard report details pervasive anti-Semitism driven by politicized instruction. That is to say, they're learning Nazism at Harvard. That's what's going on there. Isn't that remarkable? Again, President Trump interview with ABC, President Trump with a big rally. Where do you hear this fraud from ABC? And President Trump puts him in his place a couple of times. Lots and lots of things. We've got also, what are they doing in Seattle? And there's a neighborhood park there that people are upset with what Democrats are doing in this park. You may not believe it, but it's true. And we are at 888-630-9625.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. All right, I've got an update on Robert De Niro's family life. News about his son. What's her name? It's But right now, let's go to the telephones. I tell you, liberals, everything is wrong with their brain. All of them. Let's go to John, calling from beautiful upstate New York, Buffalo, New York. John, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Morning, Chris.
Morning.
Yeah, you probably saw the clip of J.B. Pritzker calling for violent, well, I didn't say violent, but, get in the streets, get out there in the street. And I was thinking to myself, can you imagine how happy he was in 2020 when the cities were burning? I mean, he must have been physically excited. I don't know if he can reach that far down on his body but stop and think about it. Here's a guy who's supposedly governor of a state, a great state. Everybody knows Illinois, home of the Chicago Bulls, and great. And to think that he and Brandon Johnson are in the same state. I mean, how do people vote for people like that? Can you explain that to me, Chris?
I think it's the characteristics of a suicidal death cult like Jonestown are quite pervasive in today's Democratic Party. And there are a lot of mental issues. They're having a lot of with gender and with capitalism and with the role of the United States in the world and their ignorance when it comes to history and to economics and war and peace and education and in particular gender. I've got to say that's one of their things. It's mental dwarfism and it's a pandemic here in the United States, John. And how do you explain that? That the J.B. Pritzker, who inherited billions and billions from his grandfather, who created the Hyatt Hotel chain, and they're thinking he might run for president, maybe of El Salvador or something, but it is amazing. And I'm going to play the audio for you coming up, so stay right there, John. A Democrat mob at the White House praising Hamas and killing Jews and kidnapping Americans and holding them hostage. They are Democrats in the United States of America. That was during the Biden administration in the White House, and the violent mob of criminal, psychotic, genocidal racists who think that they're liberals because they think that they're standing up for Hamas and that Hamas is somehow oppressed by the Jews. This is a tough day for the Democrat left in the United States. The fall of Saigon, and they 50 years ago today, and they want to celebrate the rise of communism. This against the United States of America. They supported the communists back then, they supported the communists in Nicaragua when the Soviet Union had the Sandinistas stood up in Nicaragua. They love totalitarianism because they're not liberals, they're the left. And so today, are they going to first stop and celebrate? And let me first say, God bless you, and I'm saluting right now American Vietnam War veterans, and I know many. The war was a good and noble war, a good and noble cause, and it ended today, 50 years ago, because Republican presidents put an end to it after Democrat presidents got us into the Vietnam War up to our eyeballs. First, John F. Kennedy, the senior, not the junior. First President John F. Kennedy, who was then shot in the head and killed by a communist, Lee Harvey Oswald. And he loved his woman from the Soviet Union, from Severodvinsk. I've been to Severodvinsk in northern Russia on the White Sea, also to the submarine base there. But it was a communist who loved the Soviet Union that shot and killed John F. Kennedy. And then LBJ, of course, really got us into the Vietnam War up to our eyeballs. And, a lot of research suggests that he and his family became quite wealthy as a result off of helicopters and off the war. And then Richard Nixon came in and brought the commies to the peace table, and Henry Kissinger. And eventually it was Gerald R. Ford, Republican president, in Washington, D.C., that presided over the final end of the Vietnam War. The Democrats blame Richard Nixon for the Vietnam War, and they teach in colleges that it was Richard Nixon's war because the communists and the left and people that call themselves liberals lie about everything, even when they know what the truth is, and very often they don't. But that's a remark. So the Democrats, they've got to feel torn between celebrating the victory of the communists in Vietnam 50 years ago today and the death of Adolf Hitler. Now that they are rampaging against Jewish people, not just on Ivy League campuses, but certainly on Ivy League campuses across the country, in New York City and Los Angeles and beyond, terrorizing Jewish Americans, the Democrat Party. And with the 80th anniversary today, same day, but different year, in case Democrats are trying to sort that out. What are they going to do? I think at Harvard, they should definitely be having clashing candlelight vigils tonight, celebrating communism and the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, because, we've got that. The New York Times today, they've got the headline, Ho Chi Minh City celebrates the fall of Saigon with a parade. That's the New York Times headline today, and they're celebrating the fall, and they call it Ho Chi Minh City. I call it Saigon. And when I was in Saigon, making my way around Saigon by vehicle and on foot, a lot on foot, you see there are restaurants and dry cleaners and businesses all over the place where the word Saigon is on the storefront. You see the word Saigon all over the place. The communists named it after a mass murderer, a genocidal psychopath named Ho Chi Minh. And the New York Times, they're in bed with Ho Chi Minh. They were in bed with Ho Chi Minh 50 years ago and 55 years ago and 60 years ago because the lefties have been there forever and ever. Now, the people at NDTV, Vietnam marks 50 years of fall of Saigon with grand parade. Fighter jets and helicopters, military stuff, commies, killed people. Carrying flags flew overhead with a float carrying a portrait of founding leader Ho Chi Minh as part of march. The Vietnamese people are great, and they're still fighting communism in a variety of ways. But the Democrats here in the United States, they're another thing altogether. All right, now I was, and again, I assume there will be candlelight vigils at Harvard to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Adolf Hitler shooting himself in the head and killing himself in the Fuhrer bunker, and his creepy, skanky woman, Eva Braun. He gave her a drug overdose or poison. She ingested the lethal things. Now, we were just talking to John in Buffalo, New York, and he was talking about Governor J.B. Pritzker, the Democrat in Illinois, who inherited billions of dollars and earned nothing for himself and bought, of course, the governorship in New York because that's what they do. Remember when the Democrats were trading for Barack Obama's Senate seat when Barack Obama became the presidential nominee, and the Democrats there, they were selling the Senate seat, and most of their governors do one term in the state house and then one term in the big house. More governors than not go to prison in Illinois because of the corruption. But let's go to the morbidly obese Democrat Governor J.B. Pritzker, who inherited his billions, bought the governor's mansion, and now he seems to be calling for bad things in the United States of America. And since John mentioned it out of Buffalo, let's go to soundbite number 22. J.B. Pritzker, and I actually played this audio for you a couple of days ago, day before yesterday on Monday morning. But we got a little bit of an update here, so I want to share it with you. J.B. Pritzker, he's never called for, assassinations and fire bombings and genocide against the Jews before, but now he's rethinking things.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. But I am now.
Woo! Yes! Woo!
These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace.
Mobilization, mass protests. Now, keeping in mind in a world where a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer shot Congressman Steve Scalise and was gunned down by U.S. Capitol Police because he was there to mow down an entire baseball field of Republican members of Congress, President Trump shot through the ear, but only because he had just turned his head to the right. Otherwise, it would have been very different. In Butler, Pennsylvania, another suicide attack. That gunman shot and killed, one shot, one kill by U.S. Secret Service sniper. Another suicide attack. The Democrats just firebombed the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. A week ago, not much more, not 2 weeks ago. It was during Passover. The family had just finished their Seder dinner a little while earlier, and the Democrats showed up with Molotov cocktails and firebombed the place. They're firebombing and shooting up Tesla dealerships. They're violent mobs in the streets attacking people. Maybe my favorite part of the Pritzker soundbite that we just play, and this should be on T-shirts and on hats. There should be a song. There should be chants. And it's possible that Governor Pritzker should be arrested like that Judge Dugan in Milwaukee. The Democrat Party has elected politicians that love crime and criminals, and Luigi Mangione, they want to date him. That's a euphemism. Governor Pritzker.
These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace.
These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. Okay. Well, I don't know how many Donald Trump was shot, and Steve Scalise was shot, and the governor now he was a Democrat governor, firebombed his house. The Democrat Party is a violent, criminal, terroristic hate group at this point because they commit acts of political violence pretty much every day. J.B. Pritzker, the Democrat governor of the state of Illinois, the great state of Illinois, and I was reminded of Mel Brooks and Blazing Saddles when I heard this one. But here comes J.B. Pritzker. Those awful, terrible. Now, keep in mind, they're the party that's firebombing everybody, shooting everybody. They're the party aborting 1 million babies a year, literally. They're the party of crime and mayhem, commies and totalitarian and authoritarians. Here's J.B. Pritzker.
They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box. They must feel in their bones that when we survive this shameful episode of American history with our democracy intact, because we have no alternative but to do just that we will relegate their portraits to the museum halls reserved for tyrants and traitors.
That's right. If you're one of 77 million Americans that didn't vote for the Democrat, who was Kamala Harris. Oh, she's got a speech tonight, by the way, in San Francisco, naturally. And you can give her $50,000 to attend the speech and she doesn't even play guitar. It's pretty amazing stuff. But the relegated to the, museum, their portraits, and be relegated to the museum halls for tyrants and traitors, right? You guys should stop firebombing and shooting people and terrorizing and jailing your political enemies and taking them away in leg shackles. And, the left, honestly, the fall of Saigon 50 years ago today, the death of the leader of the Socialist Workers' Party, Adolf Hitler, 80 years ago today. We're the ones that oppose all. We're the freedom people. We're the liberty people. We're the pro-life people. You're the pro-death people. You guys should all, I think, flock down to Guyana and get truckloads of Kool-Aid, but store-brand Kool-Aid, not Kool-Aid brand Kool-Aid, because that would be in keeping with the amazing stuff. And Pritzker, J.B. Pritzker, went to a human rights campaign event. They're not for human rights. It's all LGBTQ. It's got nothing to do with broader human rights. And J.B. Pritzker at the gay rally.
Bending to the whims of a bully will not end his cruelty. It will only embolden him.
Cruelty.
The response to authoritarianism isn't acquiescence. Bullies respond to one thing, and one thing only: a punch in the face.
Ah, yes, a punch in the face. That should be what happens, a punch in the face. I don't think he could raise his arm and extend his arm to punch anybody in the face, so he'd have to hire somebody to do it with his grandfather's money. That's the tyrants and traitors. Traitors, you betray your country if you're in favor of your country, because if you're not with the communist billionaire rabble burning, firebombing, shooting, terrorizing, committing acts of mob violence pretty much every day, then you're a tyrant. If you're not engaged in supporting Luigi Mangione, who gunned down a CEO, father of two, never done anything wrong in his life. If you're not a supporter of Luigi Mangione, then you're a tyrant and a traitor. If you're not a supporter of Mahmoud Khalil, who supports the extermination of the Jewish people, then you're a traitor and a tyrant. If you don't support MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, then you're a traitor and a tyrant. The Democrat Party, J.B. Pritzker. Amazing.
Ow! Have you ever seen such cruelty? Ooh! Ooh! Ow!
And now he's advocating that you punch everybody in the face. Punch everybody in the face because the Democrat Party. All right, now let's go to, speaking of punching people in the face, Jack Posobiec. He's been with One America News Network, and he's a big force on Twitter and X, and he has been for a long time. And he's out there trying to tell the truth. Now, Jamie Raskin, radical extremist Democrat member of Congress from Maryland, had they bust in Union thugs and Union thug T-shirts to Union Station in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, in the shadow of the United States Capitol. And Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin was yelling through a bullhorn. They love their bullhorns. And Jack Posobiec yelled at him. He's yelled about how great the Democrat Party is. And Jack Posobiec asked, well, why did you lose all the swing states? And why you're not very popular? And Jamie Raskin pointed at Jack Posobiec, and a gang of bloated, overweight Union thugs attacked Jack Posobiec and beat him to the ground and stomped on him and apparently stole his phone. He was trying to get back. Let me get my phone. No, and we have to bleep out all the curses from the gangster communist thugs that Jamie Raskin sicked on Jack Posobiec.
The greatness of America is the right to protest for what is right.
Yeah.
Now Jack's going to protest.
Take office. And that's where we are today. I'll leave you with my friends with the words of the great Marylander Frederick Douglass.
Jamie, why did you lose the popular vote? Why did you lose every single swing state?
He just said you have a right to protest. They've never chanted USA in their lives. Raskin is pointing, here comes the mob of thugs, big, fat, heart attack thugs. Now they're punching him in the face. Now they're beating Jack to the ground. Now they're stomping on him. You see in the camera the soles of shoes stomping on him. Didn't the congressman just say the whole country is about having the right to protest? And then Jack shouted a question that reporters should be asking. Other reporters should be asking. And that is, why'd you lose the popular vote? Why did you lose every swing state? And he literally pointed, the communist pig from Maryland, he pointed at Jack and gestured toward him with his extended fingers. And then the corpulent, too many cheeseburger union thugs beat the hell out of Jack Posobiec. Didn't the congressman just say seconds earlier, the United States is about the right to protest? You're a member of Congress. He's a journalist. He's a citizen. And the Democrat congressman loosed a gang of cattle-like thugs on him who beat him mercilessly right after saying America is about the right to protest.
Bullies respond to one thing, and one thing only, a punch in the face.
All right. That's the Democrat Party. I got Chuck Schumer coming up for you, too. The Lizard King. Right now, let's go to the telephones, Mike. Let's go to Steve, calling from Sarasota, Florida. Stephen, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Steve.
I left Illinois to get away from this vile character, Porky Pigster, from who bought his way into the governor up there. This guy is absolutely the worst of the worst, and for them to have to pull him out right now shows of desperation. It smacks of complete desperation. I was reading how China is really in trouble now because of what's going on with the trade deals, and to have to pull him out is just beyond the pale. I can't tell you. And this speech that he's doing, this is paid for. This is big money, like paid for type of speech that he practiced over and over. This guy's terrible individual, terrible human being, instituted the worst policies in Illinois. I mean, it's like the Illinois Nazis have just risen to the surface here and bringing him out.
And the violent rhetoric. The rhetoric is so violent, and it's normal for the Democrats now.
Illinois Nazis. I hate Illinois Nazis.
Right, and the thuggery with Jamie Raskin. These people are on the edge. They're on the precipice.
Yep.
They know they're being licked.
Yep.
And they have to try. They're desperate to do anything.
And they're trying to incite. They are inciting. There's no doubt about that. And if anyone's they rioted 550 times, then January 6th happened, and it's the first riot ever. If anybody beat up an ABC reporter the way Jack Posobiec was beat up, it'd be the biggest story in the world for a year.